everyone, and welcome to another episode of Everything with Jade. Today I will be talking about apartment hunting. I just moved into my first apartment. I'm in it right now. I moved in with my boyfriend, and I just wanted to share things that I learned through apartment hunting, what to expect, what to do, and what to do after you have your apartment. So I hope you guys enjoy this podcast, and of course if you have any questions, leave them down below. And if you're new, make sure that you follow this podcast. Either you can watch the video on my YouTube channel, or you can follow this podcast right here on Anchor. And if you're new to my YouTube channel, if you're watching my YouTube video, welcome, and make sure to like and subscribe and share with anybody you know that needs help apartment hunting. And without further ado, let's get started in this podcast. The most important thing you want to do before finding an apartment is to make sure that you're ready to find an apartment. Moving into an apartment is not an easy thing, especially not in the United States. There's tons of fees, there's rent. It's different from living at home and to moving into an apartment. It's a lot more independent. You can't miss things, or there's a potential that you may get kicked out. So apartment hunting is not something that you want to do if you're not ready. These tips are what you need to do before you look into an apartment, because they are essential. Without these tips, without these things that you're going to do before you get an apartment, you may not be successful in either getting an apartment or maintaining an apartment. So make sure that you have these things before you even start looking for an apartment. Number one is to have a job. This is kind of required, but I mean, some people don't realize how much money actually goes into living in an apartment by yourself or even with other people. You need to have some sort of income coming in, not only because it's going to help you with rent, it's going to help you live, but some apartments that you may look at require 2 to 3 times the amount of income that you actually make in order to even qualify for an apartment. So if you don't even have a job, you will not qualify for the income part because you don't have any income coming in. If you are living with other people, honestly, if I was moving with someone else, I would want to make sure that they have a job. That way they can do their part of rent, because there's no way that I'm picking up somebody else's rent because they can't pay for rent. You should not move into an apartment if you do not have a job or some sort of income coming in that can help you pay for your portion or for the whole apartment if you're living by yourself. And with this 2 to 3 times the amount of income, it's really going to show the apartment people that you make enough money to move into an apartment, because apartments are based either with landlords that have a whole bunch of different complexes, or they're through a company that own the apartment, and they honestly don't care what your situation is. You need to pay your bills, you need to pay your rent, and that's all they care about. And that's honestly the truth. A lot of places are more into the money than your well-being. Like I saw on recently, with COVID and everything like that, a lot of people are on unemployment. And I actually saw a few articles where renters were like suing their landlords because they were going after their unemployment, because that's income in their eyes. So it's that kind of stuff you gotta look out for. Like if you are going into a trusting landlord or company, or if you know the people you're going into, you have a good relationship with them, that's usually what you wanna look for, so you're not just another dollar bill on their screen. So just make sure you kind of research into the apartment that you're looking at, who it's run by, what company it's run by, and all that kind of stuff. And with the income, you also want to make sure you have good credit, because good credit is going to determine if you are liable in paying back bills. Because if you have horrible credit, they will not take you at all, because that shows them that you don't pay your bills and that you're not paying your bills on time. This isn't for everyone, but if you want to, I would make some sort of budget plan before you even search for an apartment. Like write down all the bills and things that you have to pay right now. That way in your mind you have to see, oh, this is the amount that I need to actually afford rent, and it's not including your food, your phone bill, TV and internet. Some places don't include water and trash. So that's all that kind of stuff you have to look into. Some places just require the rent, and then you have to pay PG&E by yourself. So you have to look about how much PG&E, what's going to be there. Like I said, electricity, the kind of appliances they have in the place, because gas and electric appliances are completely different on PG&E and price-wise. So it's like all that kind of stuff you have to look into before, or even get in order before you even find an apartment. That way you know what your budget is, which is coming into our next tip right now, is to figure out how much you actually can afford in rent. For me, I know I work and I go to school. I have to include, school bills and all that kind of stuff. My boyfriend works, he's done with school, so our max rent that we would ever pay would be like $1,100 $1,600. That's like literally all we could afford for the month, and it's gonna vary depending on your job, depending on your circumstances, but mine was like $850 or anything honestly lower, and then the max was $100 or $1,100, and that's it. Usually a lot of places, especially if they're nicer places, will be all the way up to $1,600 for like less than 600 square feet. So you really have to figure out if you want a bigger place with more stuff in it that may cause problems but for a cheaper price, or a medium-sized place that's nicer and nicer area but it's also expensive, or like somewhere in the middle of that. So you just have to like really look around and see what you're looking for and what you're looking for in an apartment, and kind of budget it based off your budget plan that you already have and what you can afford to pay rent thereafter. And then the other thing that's kind of important is to find out what exactly you want in an apartment. So for me and my boyfriend, we have a 2-bedroom apartment with 1 bath. If you're moving with roommates and you have like 4 roommates, you may want to have 4 bedrooms and possibly 2 baths. Or if you're moving by yourself, maybe just a 1-bedroom, 1 bath, depending on your situation. Or if you can afford a 2-bedroom, 2 bath, or 1 bath, 3 bath, whatever you can afford, you want to look and see what exactly you want in an apartment, because that's going to narrow down your search. On apps, which I will get into after this, but on apps you can actually like limit exactly what you want and what you're looking for in an apartment, and it will show you what's on that and what's like kind of in your criteria on the apartment as well. So just kind of figure out what you kind of want out of an apartment before you even kind of look. That way you know, one, how much stuff you have to get or take, or the amount of money you may have to spend, because a 1-bedroom, 1 bath is completely different in price than a 2-bedroom, 1 bath. So you just gotta look in that kind of stuff and see what you were looking for in an apartment. So once you have all the steps beforehand, this is when you're gonna start looking for your apartment. So the first step I recommend is looking at the different apps that are in your area, depending on the state. I don't know if there's different apps for different states, but whatever, there's a whole bunch of apps on there about housing, about apartment looking, like a whole bunch of different things that you can find to help you find your apartment. The number 1 apps that I like to use were Zillow. Apartments.com is actually how we found our place. Apartment, home living, like there's a whole bunch of different apps that you can check out in your area where you can try to find your apartment. And then this app, you want to make your own profile. That way if you want to contact people, they have your information. You want to put in your criteria, what you're looking for, if it's a 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, 1 bath, if it's a certain square feet that you want, if they allow animals, if it has a pool in the complex, if it's like multiple stories or a single story, if it's in a certain area that you want. There's a lot of stuff that goes into criteria for apartments. They have a whole bunch of stuff. You can even set a minimum and maximum of how much you want to spend and how much you want to look for budgeting for your apartment. So these apps are really good in helping you in that way. But of course, if you have like, well, this is more for housing, but like a realtor, if you're looking for a house, you'd get a realtor and all that kind of stuff. But for apartments, you usually just base it off the apps. So just look on these apps and see what you find. They have a whole bunch of pictures on them. Sometimes they don't have pictures and they just have like a price and stuff. Honestly, I would not even settle on anything until you see the place, because looks can be very deceiving. I will tell you some stories about when we went to go look at some places and they were nothing like the pictures that were online. They just want you to sign away like, oh, this is a great price in this neighborhood, like this place has to be amazing, and then you move in and it's like trash. So just make sure that you, before you even like sign anything or send any information to apartments, that you try to get a tour first. That way you can actually see what it looks like. And some of these apps actually have a save option. So after you put in your filters or criteria and anything like that, you can actually save that for the future. And if anything pops up that has sort of like what you're looking for, it will send you a notification. And that's a good way to like jump in and get into it, because let me tell you, nothing sucks more than like looking at an apartment, you fell in love with it, and then all of a sudden it's gone like within hours because someone jumped on and already got it. So you just gotta like look really fast, and if you get those notifications, it's gonna save you more time and it's gonna give you a faster time than someone else who may not have these apps. And after you find a place that it's a great price, it's kind of the square footage that you want, it has all the accommodations that you want, request a tour. Usually on the app it says like contact the person for a tour, and you just like leave your name, phone number, and like a message. So then you would do a tour that way, and they will contact you themselves. But if you really want this place and they have their number listed, don't be afraid to contact them. The first place that we actually went to go tour, he had his name on there and his phone number, and I contacted him saying that I wanted to go look at this place, and we ended up going, and there was like 50 to 60 other people who were touring the apartment as well. So with that, it's kind of hard because it's kind of like a competition between these other people. Like, it's already a competition, but like in that situation, you can't really talk to the person who's living there. Like, the guy that owned the apartment wasn't even in town. Like, he was from a different city altogether. So like, there was no way that you could even like talk to the person about it. It was just whoever was living there was showing around the apartment, and there were so many people there, so it didn't feel personal at all. Like, I felt it was personal because I was messaging him. He was messaging me back really fast, but who knows how many other people he was doing that with. So it's very, I don't know, when it's kind of a whole bunch of people and you really don't have like amazing credit or, you know, amazing income, you're probably not gonna get the place because someone above you will have it better than you. But if it's like a one-on-one tour and like you really get to know the person involved, either through a company or the owner of the apartment, it feels way more personal and just like a more better deal than just going to a place with 100 other people who are looking at the same thing. And honestly, before you settle on an apartment, I would go to as many as you can. So for instance, there was a place that had a really good price, but the area was horrible. Like, I already knew about the area, but it was still technically considered the good part of town, but it was still like a horrible area. When we got there, we literally didn't know where to go. Like, there was no signs anywhere for the place. There was fences everywhere. We ended up parking like on the shady side of the street, and there's people walking up and down, like looking at my car and all this kind of stuff. So like, we ended up going to see the person and doing the tour, and literally as soon as we walked down, like, it was trashy everywhere. There was an AC unit broken. Like, it literally wasn't even in the wall. Like, there was just a giant square in the side of the apartment with like a wood panel over it. We get inside and like, there wasn't even an oven or refrigerator in an apartment. They usually have fridges and ovens in apartments. There was not any in there. The floors were nice and they repainted, but like everything else was horrible. Like, the ceiling looked awful. Like, it was just not a good place. So we got out of there pretty quick, and she was like, "Do you want an application?" I was like, "No, I'm still looking." So like, those kind of places online, like, the pictures were beautiful. They just showed like the new paint and the new carpet and the new floors, and that was it. They didn't show anything else. So that's the kind of stuff you need to look for and like see the difference. If they're only showing that kind of stuff and not showing the entire place, then there's something wrong with the apartment that they don't want to show you. And usually a lot of people just go into it blinded, and then they get stuck with this place because they already signed a lease. So do not sign a lease until you tour a place, until you see this place, and until you talk to the person who's in charge about any concerns that you may have when you see it on the tour. And then for instance, I'll tell you about my apartment, what happened. So I went on an app and I saw this apartment and I was like, wow, like, I love it. Great part of town, a fantastic price for this part of town, really small and stuff like that, and it seems really quiet. And so I messaged my owner and I was like, hey, like, I saw this apartment was still on for sale, like, can I come for a tour? And he ended up like telling me that it was actually the one across from us right now that was on for rent, but he forgot to take it off the site, but it happened to be this one that we moved into. The lady was moving out, so it was kind of like a, you come right now to see the place and we'll see how it goes. So I literally didn't even shower. I just got up, left, and I went to the apartment that we are now, and I had a mini tour by myself. My boyfriend was at work. He didn't even get to see the place before we moved in, but when I came in, I honestly fell in love. Like, the carpets are great, the walls are great. It's really big for this price. It's only $995 here, and for this part of my town is amazing. Like, originally, like, other apartments here in this area are like $1,400 to $1,500. So like, we got a fantastic apartment. There's only 16 units. It's so very quiet. There's cement floors, so we don't hear anybody below us. We don't hear anybody next to us. And it's 2-bedroom, a bath. It has a good kitchen. So like, it was honestly like a once in a lifetime kind of steal. So sometimes that happens to people, sometimes it doesn't. I just got lucky and I looked at a whole bunch of different apartments before I was able to find this place. So sometimes it just takes patience and time. You just gotta trust the system. If it didn't work out, it didn't work out for a reason. So just remember that. If you're struggling trying to find an apartment and you're hating how it goes, everything happens for a reason. And like I said again before, like, you fall in love with this place, you saw the tour, everything like that, just make sure that you are 100% in, because you have to send your credit to the person who's doing it, and it takes away your points points. It takes like 7 to 10 points away from your credit score. So if you're going to like 50 places and doing that, it's gonna take down your credit score dramatically. So just make sure before you give them your authorization for credit and you do the lease and all that kind of stuff that you are 100% ready to move into your new apartment. All right, so after that you've gotten the apartment, you have signed all the papers and all that kind of stuff, then it comes more of what to do after you've got your apartment. So first and foremost, I would try to develop a relationship with the person who's in charge. We were so lucky that it's an owner who actually lives in town. So we actually have a very close, not close like, you know, family friends close, but like pretty much close relationship where if we need something, he is literally here in like 5 to 10 minutes or like the next day at the very least to like fix anything that we need help with. That's the kind of tenant and we're like renter slash owner relationship that you want to have, because you don't want someone that you have to constantly tell over and over again like I'm having this issue and they're not coming to help you, or they don't even live in town to do anything like that. So you just want to make sure you have some sort of relationship with your owner or landlord or company. That way if something does go wrong, you are kind of a little reliable with them and it's not like a one-sided kind of conversation all the time. Honestly, before you even sign the papers or lease or before you sign like a deposit or anything, make sure you read everything on the contract, everything. You want to make sure like it says, well, if you do a deposit, if you're going to get back your deposit or if they're going to keep it regardless, even if there aren't any damages. Like that's the kind of stuff that are written in there and you have to read it for yourself. Don't let them just try to talk you into whatever they want. Like read your contract and see what it says, what kind of lease it is. Ours is a year lease and then it goes month to month. That is really good because then you can just stay for like a year and a half and then when you're ready you can just go. So you're not stuck for a whole nother year. So it's like that kind of stuff. What's gonna work good for you and how are you going to manage living in this apartment that you now basically have. And then once you have all the paperwork done, they've done their background checks and you're ready to sign the lease, just make sure you go over everything with the owner slash landlord slash whatever. That way you know exactly what's going on and everything like that. So after you've gotten a place, I recommend that you start looking for things for your apartment. For me, I have a big family and it happened that my grandma was moving at the same time that I was, and my mom already moved beforehand, so I knew I was gonna be moving out soon. I didn't know how soon I was gonna be moving out, which became really soon, but I started hiding things away that I was gonna take for my place. So for example, the couch that we have here was at our old house before we moved into the new house, which you saw on my YouTube channel when it was being built. So we kept the couch and I actually took it to my boyfriend's house and it was staying there so all him and his roommates could use it until we were ready to move together. And then our kitchen table was my grandma's when she moved and she got new stuff, so then we got her kitchen table and we got her microwave and like a couple stands in the kitchen. Let's see, we bought like a little end tables. All the TVs came from our houses, the bookcases came from our houses. We already had all the desks and that kind of stuff. So you kind of want to get together and see what you have. If it's just you, just see what you have, or if you're moving in with roommates, like make a group chat and see what everybody has. That way you're not buying a whole bunch of new stuff. Like if you have everything already, like use it. We had all of our dressers. My boyfriend bought a brand new bed like probably a couple months before we moved, so like that worked out. We didn't have to get a new bed or anything like that. We literally didn't buy that much stuff. We honestly just bought like some decorations. Like I already had most of my decorations anyway because I loved oceans forever, so I've been collecting ocean themed, and I already knew my first apartment was going to be ocean themed, so I already had all that stuff. Obviously we had to buy food and like the seasonings, all that kind of stuff. We had to buy cleaning supplies, a vacuum, like a toaster. We bought a blender. We bought just like the smaller stuff and like some pan sets and stuff like that. So we didn't have to buy like furniture at all, which saved us a lot of money. So if you know anybody who's moving or someone who's downsizing, like get in there before they get rid of it so you can take it up. And honestly, Goodwill actually has like some good furniture that they're selling there. So like go to those kind of places, go to swap meets, just like maybe ask on Craigslist, like try to find these other places instead of buying buying new if you don't have the money to buy new. But we were fortunate enough to have most of the furniture, so we really didn't have to worry about paying for all of this furniture and stuff. We still spent a lot on the smaller things, but it wasn't like as bad as it would have been. And if you do like decorations and stuff, like I said, have a decoration in mind of what you're gonna do for your apartment. That way when you do go buy stuff, you have like certain things that you're gonna buy. Like our apartment is ocean themed, so it's a lot of browns, blues, and tans, and greens and yellows. So like that's kind of our theme of this apartment. But like my mom has a farmhouse theme, so hers is like gray, whites, and blues. There's other places that are very colorful, so it just depends on your preference. And that way you can kind of get things that match that decoration aspect. And honestly, before you move, I would buy as much as you can. Like don't wait until you have your apartment and then start buying all this stuff. Like you can probably, well, you can wait for the food and maybe some other smaller things that you need after you've been like moving in and seeing actually what you need. But try to buy everything beforehand, because it's going to be a lot easier to just move everything at once than moving in with like 2 or 3 things and then going buying everything to move in. So I would just like have stuff stored somewhere. We stored stuff at my mom's house, in my room, in the living room, in the garage, my dad's house, in the garage, in my room, at his place. So like we had a whole bunch of different places to store them. If you need to buy a storage unit just to hold all your stuff in, that's fine too. But I honestly recommend getting everything before you actually move. And then after, right before you're supposed to move in, after the other person moved out, make sure you come have a tour right before then, because I viewed the apartment next door and it had upgraded carpet and upgraded flooring, and this apartment didn't, so I didn't actually get to see what our apartment looked like. But it still has great flooring and great carpet and everything like that. But you want to see what the place actually looks like once everything is out of it. That way you can check the walls and to take pictures of everything. If you don't have like a timestamp on your camera, just make sure you have like some sort of documentation that has like the date on it. But you want to go through the whole apartment and take pictures of everything. That way when your lease is up and you like come back and there already was like a dent in the wall, and then you have the photo evidence that this was here when we moved in, this is here now we move out. It's not something that we added. They can't take away from your deposit because you have proof that you did nothing wrong in this apartment. So just like take pictures of anything that like kind of looks out of the ordinary, that you're not sure why it looks like that. That way you're protected that it was already here before you moved in. And that's basically all that I have about apartment hunting. This is, like I said, my first apartment. I'm not an expert on apartment hunting because this is my first one, but I felt like with all these tips that I did, I feel honestly very successful, and I feel very happy where I am now. So if you're looking for an apartment, go for it. My parents were nervous, especially with COVID, that I wouldn't be able to afford it, but I actually got promoted in my job. I'm doing great work-wise, so I'm actually way over affording this apartment. So don't be scared. If you're scared to move, honestly, it will change your life for the better. It has honestly been the best thing to have my own place, to have everything in one place instead of 2 houses. I love my parents. I love my, childhood homes, but I'm 22 now. Like I needed my own place. I needed to start growing my relationship more with my boyfriend. So it's been very good. So if you have any different questions about apartment hunting or anything like that, feel free to ask me. I'll do the best I can in assisting you on things that I've learned, or if I haven't gone through, I'll try to find resources for you. But without further ado, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you in my next podcast. Bye guys.